I can't believe it's a dream, and I can't believe it's not. This week on Cinema de Fromage, let's scare Jessica to death. Oh, we don't have it too cute.
I'm calling on all the spirits of everyone who's ever died. Jessica. I'm calling on all the spirits of everyone who's ever died in this house. Jessica.
Paramount Pictures presents Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
I'll just take a minute! Jessica, you're home now. Who are you? Why have you been following me?
What's the matter with her?
She knows who killed that man.
What man? I don't know.
He was lying right here. But I swear it's true. I think that the same creature or whatever it is that killed the antique dealer killed them all.
I think you should go back to New York for a while. You can see your doctor.
I'm still alive. I was just looking at the picture. Looks so much like you. My eyes. Look in my eyes. Come with me. Come with me. Follow me, Jessica. Follow me. I won't go away. I'll go away. It's not real, Jessica. It's not real. Jessica, I'm here. I'm here, Jessica. No! Stay. Stay, Jessica. Stay. I'm still here. I'm in your butt. No! You want to die. Go on. You want to die. Leave me! Leave me!
Will you be quiet? I'll hear you!
Dreams or nightmares, madness or sanity. I don't know which is which.
Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
Yeah, that's the movie for tonight. Let's scare Jessica to death. Welcome to Cinema de Fromage. I'm your host, King Penguin, and with us, our motley crew here. We've got Kente. How you doing today?
Awesome.
Oh, what was that? Sorry.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, sorry, I had my earphones down because it seemed a little loud. Awesome. Okay, and Joshua, how are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous. How are you?
Okay. I'm recovering. I just finished watching this movie just before we started, so
Oh, it's fresh.
fresh is an interesting word to use, but sure. And of course, also, because I'm leaving last for the best, Jen, how are you today? Hello. Oh, I hear nothing.
Jen, did we scare Jen to death?
Let's scare Jen to death.
Great, thanks. Hot.
Oh, there you are.
Super, super hot.
Well, seeing as
Can you hear
this
me?
is your yes, we can now, and seeing as this is your pick
You
for
scared
this,
me to death.
Yes,
Am I
can you
here?
hear
Are
us?
you here? Is this a
Oh
dream?
my goodness! Seeing as this is your movie, why don't you tell everyone about this flick called?
I can
Or
hear you. I'm going to leave
disappear.
and come right back.
Right.
All right.
It goes with the theme, definitely.
Okay. Was anybody as? Does anybody like this film? Just before she gets back.
Oh my god, it's like it's the best movie ever. I mean, Citizen Kane had nothing on this one.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm not the only one being a jerk.
No, you're not being a jerk. You're
Because right now, I, as I said jokingly, and I didn't realize it was actually being a prophet. This should be called "Let's bore King Penguin to death."
yes.
Because this was a little on the dull side, but I'm not going to be totally mean because it's not the worst film I've seen so far on this show. It is not. So I'm not going to pour hatred onto this film. So. Oh, is she coming in?
Yes.
There she comes. Okay, good. Don't want to break the flow or anything. So, Jen, are you there? Come in, Jen. From beyond, this seance calls Jen in to join us.
I think I'm here now. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're a little bit wobbly, but you're there. So, Jen, tell us about Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
The description in front of me. So if somebody else could be so kind as to
It's in the chat.
appreciate.
It's in the chat. You don't have to go by. You can go by your own description of the plot. You don't have to go by the official description. This is your pick, so I'm assuming you know the film.
Well, that's kind of a longer story, but I kind of know it, just a little.
Okay.
But somebody. Sorry, I'm actually on my phone.
You want me to read it? I'll read it.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, Josh.
Newly released from a mental ward, Jessica hopes to return to life the way it was before her nervous breakdown. But when Jessica moves to a country house with her husband and a close friend, she finds a mysterious girl living there who may or may not be a vampire. Jessica's terror and paranoia resurface as evil forces surround her, making her wonder, are the visions real, or is she slipping back into madness?
There you go.
Awesome, man.
That
Can I just say two things? Joshua, in season 4, you will be able to torture us with your own movies.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-1990.
That's true.
So you got that to look forward to. And then also, I noticed something about Jen's choices in movies. They all revolve around cars, and 2 of them were hearse. The other one kind of looked somewhat like a hearse, the in the car. But I think you have like the hearse fetish.
Oh, wait, but we can tie this into her other film too that she picked for last year, because there was a hearse in that, and a creepy old house, and Victorian clothing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and nothing much happening.
It wouldn't. This wouldn't be called The Happening. It'd be The Not Happening.
All right.
And by the way, a good friend of mine came by yesterday, and my mother, who's in town, she's about to leave next week, and we all watched this together. And they're not talking to me anymore. My mother was quite pissed. She actually liked the car. She did watch the car.
Okay.
But she was not having this one. But she's not on the show, so.
Oh, we're definitely having connection
I think
problems.
you gotta stop. Watch my.
Get a bad impression of you.
You're breaking up bad. You're breaking bad.
You better find a better sales.
And I think there's there must be a huge delay, because I noticed that she's like way off. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
All right. Well, let's get into this, and hopefully she'll.
Okay. Why don't we start with first impressions of the film? And I'm gonna hit Josh first, because new guy, he's got to be the one to suffer the most. So let us know about this horror film we just saw.
If only I came prepared. I think I'm about to blow some minds.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
If ever there was a film that could be said is ahead of its time, it's this one. From the ASMR quality whispering, which is now, of course, a popular thing, to the soundtrack that was ripped straight from Minecraft. It is the predecessor to many, many things that we take for granted as just part of pop culture today. But here's the thing. Not only did I mean those things in the best possible way, because if there's one thing I love about Minecraft, it's the music. This movie was shot well. It had two visions going for it at the same time. I'm not sure which it was going for, ghost story or monster film, depending on where it was in the movie. The performances, I thought, were, and I say this unironically, they were great. In fact, I might have developed a little crush on the main character, but of course, Psycho is my thing.
You're talking about Jessica, not
Yeah.
Huh.
This movie could quite possibly be the best movie I've ever seen. No, let's not get silly. But is it the best movie I was ever forced to watch on this show? Very well could be.
Oh, come on. You were forced to watch last week's movie and you gave it a good rating.
Yeah, and I'd like this one more.
Oh, okay. Then Dawn of the Dead. Oh,
Ooh.
the plot thickens. All right.
Okay,
all right.
but you were right. Mind blown.
You know what? Okay. That's interesting that I saw reviews, right? I watched reviews afterwards of people reviewing it. And people were like, yeah, obviously. I saw reviews of it, and people were talking about it as an existential masterpiece, and I'm just like, huh? Like I'm starting to think, am I high? But I didn't get that from this film.
Mm.
I'm not an animals expert, but that wasn't a mole.
No.
Yeah, what was that? Like a mouse? Yeah, like,
that was as mole as the budget could afford.
yeah, we all looked at each other too. Like we were like, not a mole.
It's got no eyes. Moles do have eyes. They're just squinty, and that's a mouse.
That kind of actually bugged me. I was like, hey,
well, maybe that was part of the weirdness of her mind that she was seeing moles as mice.
Right, I guess.
Oh, the madness.
What was that with her voice, though? Jessica's voice. She had a weird voice. Is that her, the actress's voice? She sounded like, her voice was kind of weird. Was it weird to y'all? The way
Sometimes it was very clear that there were a few things they had to pick up, later on.
ADR there.
The one scene in particular that pops to mind is when they're loading up to go to town, and it's just like this random, okay, it's like does not match the scene at all.
Some other actress come in. Can you just say okay so we can have this scene work? All right. No, okay. Say okay.
No.
Here's your $20. Have a great day.
No. The guy I feel bad for, though, is Porn Stash dude.
Porn Stash.
Because, he's thinking, I'm a third wheel. It kind of sucks. I'm going to be in his house. My friend.
I will say that sound editing was not actually.
I guess you won't.
He's talking about his friend. His friend and his wife is going to be getting it in. I'm going to just be in my room by myself. And then he sees this redhead chick, a flower child.
Mm-hmm.
And he's thinking, you know what? Hey, it's going to be pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And then she's all like, we got to take it slow. And he's like, take it slow? I thought it was all about free love.
You're a deadbeat living in our house.
Right. He's like, and then of course she messed with the husband first over him. But I mean, I guess he got it in the end, literally.
Yeah. Well,
so,
I think this film is working on two things at once. It's the horror of mental illness, because once again, mental illness is evil and bad, and that's, and then there's the other horror of the house guest that just won't leave,
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't get a hint, and then they invite her over, and she just never goes. That kind of house guest. So maybe that's the horror that we really have to look for in this film.
It's obviously in that old picture too.
That was obvious right from the start. It's like, okay, so if it's supposed to be playing, this is what's bothered me about this film. If it's supposed to be playing on her madness, then we should not be seeing things happening away from her. There should be, like, where she can be paranoid that her husband wants to be with the girl. That's good. That would be great. Except for don't have a scene later where they're doing it. Or don't make these things become real when she's not there. They have to be these things that she sort of sees or thinks she sees, and in her mind she plays it up. And it could be innocent things, but in her mental agitation, it works. But it's not that in this film because they show it when she's not around. And that's what bugged me the most about this film. It's like there's a kernel of a good idea, and then they just go, wait, no, it's actually vampires. Okay. All right. Well, then it doesn't matter whether she's mentally ill or not because it's really vampires.
No, go ahead, Jen. Let's see if you got it.
Can she speak?
Yeah, I think there's a big delay.
Yeah, huge.
It's
We got her picture at least.
Yeah, I know. Right? Is it 3-minute delay? Jen?
Jen?
Because I know she's come. Dang.
Wow. This is her movie too, which is, I'd like her to actually speak and defend
it. I can't defend it on my own.
I think we're split down the middle on this screen here because I get what they were trying to go for, but I detested this film. I mean, I didn't hate it as much as I hated Casino Royale. I mean, Casino Royale was vile, disgusting piece of wasted thing. This film I did not like because it tried to be something, and I didn't think it worked. I hated the main character. Jessica was so bland. I was calling her Egg halfway through the thing because there was no okay, she's supposed to be crazy, but she was such a nothing character for most of this movie. I'm just sitting there and she's just talking banally, and I want to smack her for just being so boring and dull as a character. I was like, why are any of these people with her? She was boring. She's the worst thing you could be as a main character, and that is dull. Oh, well, Jen, bring it back.
I got a defender, though. I mean, if you just got out of the insane asylum.
True, you're going to try to act normal, and then maybe that's why she's so bland.
There you go, Jen. Go ahead, Jen.
Yes, you're here. Go. Before they go again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Speak.
Oh,
Speak.
I don't know whether it's just like a huge time delay.
She can't hear us?
I don't think she can.
Let me.
If she could see us, we could.
Oh God, that's.
We. Yes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. You're gone again. Vampire's curse strikes again. All right, Kente, go ahead. You tell me you were going to defend the character. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'll say this about this movie. I actually like those kind of. I like the feel and the aura. That movie. She says, "Can I Skype her?" Let's try this. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Technical difficulties. We're like the Democratic. What was it? Debates yesterday? Didn't NBC have a huge problem?
Oh, I didn't even.
Oh,
can you guys hear that ringing?
I can hear the ringing. We can hear it. This feels like the film.
Okay, let's try Skype. So,
do we call her direct now?
Let's try this. Oh, she's calling me on Skype.
So how about them vampires?
I know, right? This is.
Do you want to stop recording and try it all over again? Oh,
We're gonna get it.
okay.
We're gonna get it. All right, so. Jen.
Can you hear? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is that-
Hey, Jen. Here you go. What's your phone number? We'll try to Skype her in. Sorry about that, everybody.
This reminds me of our first show this season. Where I disappeared for about a half an hour or so.
I know, man.
That's all right.
People are like, you guys are not professional.
I'd sing for a while.
What I'll say is this.
Go ahead.
About this movie is I like that 70s. She's gonna start the update. I like those 70s, like that aura, that feel to it. It has kind of this not exploitation, but
sort of grindhouse.
Yeah, and
it's sort of like a cheap film stock, kind of grainy. It's like almost like a documentary look.
Right, and I like the looks and feel,
Mm-hmm.
and those funny sound effects that they put in the movie.
Oh yeah,
and all of that stuff. Like that stuff, I actually do like.
Yes.
I like that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and
and the creepy townsfolk thing is kind of a neat thing too, where they're standing around, everyone's just kind of being weird around them. And I like that too. I mean, like I said, I don't hate this movie. I just didn't like it. But yeah, like that stuff I liked. I liked the mood, the atmosphere. It's just that it didn't go anywhere. At least nowhere interesting.
Well, it started where it ended and ended where it began.
Mm-hmm. True. It did do that.
So you kind of, I guess, knew where it was going. The question was, how did we get there?
Yeah, I could see it. It didn't feel like it was a flashback. It almost felt like it was just an echo of what she was thinking before she went to the place and after, as opposed to, hey, this is just recalling everything. That's the way I felt of it. It's sort of like this is her mind, and it's just going to repeat this kind of stuff. And maybe that's what she's doomed to forever be, just always going into these moments of madness and having recovery and then going back into them again. I mean, did she really kill her husband? Did anything of this stuff happen? Or is it and that's the thing, that could have been the way this film was if they hadn't shown things away from her point of view. So that in the end, you don't know if it's just all in her head and maybe none of it happened and all that. And that would make it a better film for me.
That's what I thought was interesting, because there were things that you questioned: is this real or is this not real?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there was also like a secondary scenario where the vampire thing was happening, coupled with the mental illness. It really leaves you wondering what was real, what wasn't, because something's going on, but something else is going on too.
Yeah, but I think it would be a more disturbing and more in the horror field if you had no concrete idea that something was going on, where you could doubt, you could say maybe something was going on, maybe it wasn't. And maybe this is all in her head, and there's no definitive answer, I think would make it a far more disturbing and horrific film. But the second that you show, hey, there's vampires. She may be crazy, but there are vampires. And then it's like, okay, now it kind of loses what kind of atmosphere you have. Then you go, okay, it's a vampire film. and she just happens to be a crazy person who's, and it's not a crazy person who no one believes who can see all this stuff happening. It's just she's a crazy person who's trying to deal with all this stuff happening. Well, maybe putting it that way, it makes it a better film. She's a crazy person that has weird shit happening to her, and this is how she deals with it, or tries to. Okay, maybe I'll give it a little bit more of a bump up for that. But I think it would have been far more effective if we had not known that this was actually happening, and that she was just seeing things. Like, for example, all the bandages on all the villagers that everybody saw. It's like, okay, that means it's actually happening. Whereas if it were just a small thing, like maybe she's seeing a scar, maybe nobody else would notice. Then it becomes something, or is this real? And so the scar thing that they had, where everyone had these scars all over them, was fine. But when you had everybody wearing bandages and the main characters going, oh, look at these guys all wearing bandages like they were in the Civil War. It's like, okay, that means that's real. And there's no reason why everybody has wounds unless, they had some sort of fight that happened in the city where they were riot or something.
And we don't know what happened before they got there.
Well, I think we can deduce in the logic of the film that, yeah, they've all been bitten by this vampire chick. And that's the problem.
They could have had a fight club.
I doubt it. Though, mind you, that husband was such a... when the guy slapped him on the head, he didn't react. He just got back in his car, and I'm like, "What? Really? That's your?" And she's like, "Oh, okay, I'm with him. Let's go." I was like, "Oh, at least stand up for yourself a little, just a little."
Jen, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Can you hear them?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Good. Then please tell us about this film and your words. Now that we've rambled down.
Okay, so I saw this film a long time ago. Probably it's one of those films that, like, I saw probably far too young to even understand kind of what it was about. So there was that aspect to it, was kind of psychologically scary. But as I got older and as I went back and revisited this movie, what I sort of walk away from it with is that it is a bit more of a wider analogy, I don't know if it's an analogy, but a wider metaphor for the time, for the period, for the era, and that it's sort of it's like a descent that is everything questionably. Is this moral? Is it not moral? Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? The question piece, I think, underneath it is not whether Jessica is crazy. It's basically, it kind of comes down to what is happening, and is what is happening morally right, wrong, someplace in between. The stuff that's the supernatural stuff it's a little bit more of this is the veneer by which we're supposed to see things through, but it's not technically, I don't think, just a story of the supernatural. It's more a question of the people that are in this film are behaving in a certain way. Why are they behaving in that way? And does that say something about not just who they are, but like how does their actions create the sense of what happens next? So just sort of, if I can break down a couple of things. Emily obviously has lived there for a very long time, right? 100 years at least. And since Emily has been there for that long, she must have breezed in and out of what they call the Bishop estate, the Bishop orchard, all of that, for quite some time. And the townspeople have all come under their spell, the Bishop's spell. And whether that means something that is vampiric, which I think is what they were sort of hedging at, or whether it means that there is some wider sort of cult thing going on, I think that's supposed to be ambiguous. I don't think we're actually supposed to draw conclusions from that. But what we are supposed to...
Go ahead, sorry. I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
All I was going to say is what I think we are supposed to draw away or come away from this with is there is a case to be made that if we aren't always questioning the things that we see and recognizing whether the things that we see are a part of our reality, not a part of our reality, something real happening or something imagined happening, that we are failing. That's our failing. And I saw this awesome deconstruction of Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which it wasn't what I thought it was, right? Their deconstruction was a little bit more, it was almost more metaphor than even I would read into it. But what I found so interesting was that when they started pointing out what the director had done in all of these different shots, even I didn't catch some of this stuff. Like, I didn't catch in the very beginning when they do the seance and Emily says, so there are no dead people here. But if you listen to what was happening before, what it really seems like is maybe none of them are actually alive to begin with. Maybe this is all a part of Jessica's purgatory, right? So even though this kind of stuff is happening and it feels to us like this is real, that's why the ferryman wouldn't take her back across. She can't go back across because she's already dead. Those kinds of things. But that just because she's dead doesn't mean that she's not still questioning the reality that's there. So I know that that's a lot to take in, but that's what I think makes this movie so interesting, is that there is a lot to sort of decompress and deconstruct.
Okay. The only thing I would say, I don't think the cult-like thing works, only because they do manifest scars, and everyone seems to manifest scars, which, you know, are tied with like vampire lore in one way or another. So I think, you know, these are all seem to be, the town is the victim of this vampire. They all have the bandages and everything else, and they made it clear that this is a reality in this case, in this movie, that, you know, everybody has seen these bandages and scars, as I said before. So I don't see it as being some sort of like, I can't see the cult side of it, even though everyone's acting strange and everything. But that's sort of the whole thing that was running in a lot of 70s horror films, of the scary small town thing, where, you know, you're the outsider in this group and you get the paranoia going on and that. And, you know, some of it is because of I mean, I can think of it from the late 60s and that, where you can look at the violence going on in the South, and the small towns, you know, striking out at people coming in from outside and, you know, trying to disrupt their way of life and everything. And there's that kind of fear of that kind of thing. And, you know, look at that Texas Chainsaw Massacre for another one, where you're going into the rural area where, you know, it's not safe for anyone from the outside. And that I got that vibe from this film. And I thought about the whole she's dead kind of thing, when, you know, they're riding around in the hearse and everything. And I thought, okay, that, you know, they crossed the river, and I said, okay, that could be, you know, but the problem I find is that it doesn't seem to go to anywhere. Like, it's not that they have to reveal this in the end. I'm not saying they should, but okay, if she's in purgatory and everything, what's the point of the ending where she's killed her husband sitting there?
Because she's in purgatory because she killed Duncan.
So this is just reliving the events, and then it'll start all over again. Is that the idea?
Yeah, or something along those lines. And again, you know, there's a lot of subjective material in this movie, which sort of makes it feels very open-ended in terms of what is actually happening. And that is why I think, to a lot of people, it is more why they either like it or really don't like it. It's when you have so much subjective material, and when there is so much to sort of make sense out of, some people, I think, just rightly so, choose not to make sense out of any of it, because it does feel disconnected. But if you look at it all the way through as a kind of roadmap to why Jessica is where she is and doing what she's doing, it makes more sense that either Jessica is not alive, or if she is alive, that she has already been put under the vampire spell. And what we're seeing is the reconciliation, the rationale for why, or for not why, for what she's experiencing. In other words, she is absolutely experiencing something that is more hypnotic, and this part of it is that's what we're seeing. She thinks she's crazy. Why does she think she's crazy? Because the vampire is telling her that this is how she can reconcile it in her own brain.
My only thing with this movie, though, is, I mean, if you have someone to break it down for you afterwards, then you go, oh, man, that's deep. But just on pure entertainment value, it was very slow moving, which I don't mind normally. But I don't know. It was kind of hard to really get into.
Yeah.
Even though you can follow it and all of that stuff, it was something. But I have a question for everybody though. What do you think Emily's greatest crime is? Is it biting people and turning them into vampires, or is it her bad singing and guitar playing?
There's that. Being so obvious. I don't know. I mean, that's the problem. Like, she's obvious through the whole film that she's not what she seems to be. And there's no point in this film where I thought, oh, she's just some innocent hippie that's living in the house. I'm looking at her and going, and I didn't see the trailer beforehand, which gives away everything in this film. But through the entire film, I thought, okay, there's something up with her. And it's obvious there's something up with her. And that kind of, this is like what I said, where I'm disappointed in this film, where it could have been something better. It could have taken her madness and said, is it madness? Is it really happening? Is this her perception of this Emily person who could be completely innocent? And then, Jessica is, in her mind, is making things worse. But it's not that, because we know in this film, because things happen outside of Jessica's view that show that all this is happening. So there's no surprise there. It's all happening, and Jessica's not crazy. She's just having some crazy thoughts during this whole episode.
The best character was the friend, because
he's spraying the poison all over the apples.
He was the only person that actually was working on the farm. And
I know.
Even when he was dead, he was
working his butt off. Yeah, I don't think I hope for the actress's sake that was actual just water they were spraying out of the back of the thing when she was running through that.
No, that was her life.
That was actual DDT or something like that. Oh,
yeah,
that's not good.
Yeah, she ran right into it. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely say that the actress that they got to play Jessica, I don't really understand what the appeal is. I mean, one of my wishes is that if they could remake this movie, that they would make it with an actress who doesn't feel so. She feels annoying.
Bland.
Yeah,
she's bland.
Annoying.
She's nothing.
But
I can see why her husband would want to have an affair on her.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it does play into the kind of it's not about the mental illness. It's about something else. It's about her constantly being on the edge of questioning everything she sees. In fact, in the very beginning, when they come into the house, when they see the person upstairs, her husband says, yeah, no, don't worry, I saw it too. As like, this is obviously a thing that has been happening for a really long time.
Right.
It sort of, I mean, in some ways that kind of grating feeling is sort of what I feel like everybody around her must be experiencing pretty consistently.
But then it does become about the mental illness, doesn't it? Because now everyone's going to question, and what is interesting in this film, I have to give it credit, that other films or lesser films definitely don't do when they deal with mental illnesses, that she is trying her best not to react, just so people don't think she's crazy, which is actually, I think is really a good choice, and it's a far more interesting choice. The only thing that I was kind of, like I said, annoyed with is the fact that, and maybe it could work into the movie's favor, because I thought about it afterwards. I did say this earlier and you weren't here, but maybe it is a more interesting thing if you think about how does a person with mental illness deal with supernatural stuff that is, not normal happening to her, that she has to question her own sanity. And then she also try to be like, how do I react in this situation? Because part of me is saying I should do this, and is it because I'm crazy, or is it because I'm sane and this is really bad things happening? And it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But because there is no ambiguity in this film, it's pretty straightforward. This is, as far as what's happening in the film, not how the film presents it, is that the vampire is real, and that's the final thing that just ruins this thing for me. By making the vampire real, it's yeah.
But if that's the case, if that's really the case, then Jessica is actually the most resilient of everybody because she's the last one to succumb. So, that actually makes a very interesting case for, yes, how does mental illness affect your vision of the supernatural? Does it give you an edge? Does it not give you an edge? What does it actually do? And in this movie,
it makes you more paranoid about revealing the things that you see.
Yeah, right. Well, if that's what they're... Well, also, too, though, she somehow... Even though she was hearing Emily's voice somehow in her head, I don't think she was actually internalizing, was that actually Emily, or was that her hearing Emily as in, I know what you're thinking? I mean, there again, so much of this is sort of out there to be speculated on that it's hard to pin down exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, definitely the voice in her head could be just the voices in her head, and that she's projecting Emily's voice onto those things. And that, that's not a definite yes or no answer in this film, which is fine. That's the kind of things I wanted throughout the rest of the film. Like when she goes to say goodbye to him in the car, Emily says goodbye, and she leans in to probably kiss him, and she sees that. It'd be played better if we didn't know that he was hitting on her at some point, and that it would be all in her perception that, he's definitely being, something's going on. So everything that she sees can have a different meaning than what the reality is, which would be, like I said, a far more interesting film. Yes. Because there could be then we don't know, and I think that's better.
I hear what you're saying, but I also sort of think that and remember, this is very, genre isn't the right word. This is very, there is a timestamp on this. And it feels incredibly 70s in every way, shape, or form. Yeah. And there was sort of a, I'm not exactly sure how to describe it other than to say that not everything in the 70s was road mapped out as carefully as I think we have gotten with our storytelling. Our storytelling is so much more precise now. And it's both a credit to the movie and also a difficult thing for us now in 2019 to look back on it and say, this would make so much more sense if we did this, this, and this. I sort of feel like in some ways that Let's Scare Jessica to Death was a little bit like what art house films try to do sometimes, and sometimes they succeed and sometimes they fail at being out of the box with their storytelling. And I can't say with certainty, I know why. I mean, I've read so many reviews about this, and people in particular, who say they love it or say they hate it. I understand why people are confused by what's happening, but I also think that that part of that is our experience where we are, and whether you lived in the 70s or didn't live in the 70s. We're not experiencing anything the same way now as it was then. And I do feel like there is a little bit of that kind of going on, because there were a bunch of films, not exactly like this, but around that kind of thematic function back in the 70s as well. Somebody else brought that up actually to me.
Josh, you're the other person that's defended this film.
Yes.
So what have you to add to that, on your feelings on what you saw and everything?
Well, I think a lot of interesting points have been made over the last few minutes, especially when it comes to deciphering whether or not mental illness is a good weapon against supernatural phenomenon. I didn't even think about it that way at the time. And like I said, I watched it twice today. And I'd say that it worked out very effectively, because she did not know whether or not everything that was happening was going on inside of her head. So, she had to keep quiet about that. There was a scene in particular right before the husband decided to be, what's a good word? Intimate with the vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Where he said, yeah, maybe we should get out of here, and you can go see your old doctor because, honey, you're going fruity. And she said, sleep on the couch. And that goes to what you said earlier about his whole attitude towards everything, where whenever there's some sort of confrontation, he's just as like the beta in everything.
Yeah. I
But
didn't like him. He got slapped on the head and didn't do a damn thing. He crawled into his car and waited for his wife to come out. In the infamous chicken house scene.
Yes. In the movie The Bird Box, they use that same concept of mental illness shielding you from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not very cleverly. It just makes it. Oh, you're crazy already, so this just makes you not as crazy, less crazy, or just mean crazy. But yeah, not a very very enlightened view of mental illness. Like I'd say, I'll give this film credit. Its view of mental illness is not. It's not a cheap plot device, which it could have been. So, give credit where it's due. I mean, and especially from the 70s when, you had movies like Psycho and what have you, where mental illness is seen. Yeah, he's a crazy person. Everyone now, and it's become the thing. Oh, that guy's schizophrenic, so he's going to be a murderer or whatever. Whatever that means in people's minds.
It's a little more like, I know this is a ridiculous. It's the parallel is not the same, but it is a little bit like I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Mimic, where there's a kid who basically deciphers this crazy code, and the code is there's these supernatural beings and whatever. Well, the idea, I think, is that mental illness has become really tropey especially in horror movies. Oh, yeah. And Let's Scare Jessica to Death doesn't sort of adhere to that trope factor as much as it sort of just explores it in a. It's not gentle, but it's definitely with a much more open mind about it. And also, I feel like it gives a little bit more credit to the person who's experiencing whatever they're experiencing, because it's not jumping to the conclusion that, well, haha, you're crazy, and we the audience are not. So we're gonna show you the audience everything that's not real, and just make the person who's seeing or possibly not seeing anything, that we're gonna make their vision seem like they're ridiculous. And in this way, it's sort of, it's almost like they handle it with slightly more kid gloves. And I like that. I really did like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I give it credit for that. It could have gone a totally different way. It could have gone the cheap exploitation way of dealing with it. I mean, we don't know what her illness was, and they don't go into it. They just say she was ill. Would have been back then nervous breakdown, which could have been a number of any number of issues that would have happened. And so, and that I give the film credit for that, because it doesn't it's not a crutch that lays its thing on. It actually is part of the story in a way that is not exploitive. It actually works. Like the voice hears in her head, kind of like, okay, maybe she's schizophrenic and she's hearing these voices, and she's not dealing like, these are real. Part of her is trying to refuse to believe these things, but there's just nagging there. Like, you don't see her reacting or screaming out at the voices or anything like that. She's sort of emotionally reacting, but she's not talking back to the voices. She's not doing the crazy stuff you see in films. She's hearing the voices, and it's sort of like she's trying to deal with focusing on what she's doing while the voices are happening to her. And you'd think, okay, that's a little more of a Kente, you're not a voice in my head.
It also, I haven't seen very many movies recently or historically that do that kind of voiceover successfully, because usually that voiceover narrative is, I don't know, it's always, they beat you over the head with it, and I hate that.
Yeah, actually, I didn't. You know, in the beginning of the film, I didn't think it worked. As it went on, and you start hearing, when you realize it's different voices in her head, not her actually
Yeah.
monologuing, then it works. The opening, though, didn't, because it was like, okay, you're going to cute with the voiceover thing and say something.
Well, I really do believe that the film had a very good look to it, and it had a very good, very good atmosphere in that regard. I really think the director John Hancock really put his signature on this.
Definitely. Also,
Did you let that go by, didn't you? You're a bastard.
just in case anybody is interested, yeah, just in case.
Hey, that was a good one. And even Canadian got that joke.
There's a whole online community at letscarejessica.net.
What?
Which is, yeah, there's a whole online community at jessica-to-death.net. And it's actually, it's so interesting. The site looks like it came out of like 1990, but it's so funny that people still. In fact, I just heard this thing the other day about a little group that gets together and they meet up in all these different locations, show the movie, and talk about it. I mean, it's like, if that's not cult film, I don't know what is.
Oh, wait a minute. This is the website.
I sit here and I can't believe that it happened.
Yeah, me neither.
And yet I have to believe it.
Me too.
Dreams or nightmares.
Enter if you dare.
Oh wow! We gotta make one for burnt offerings. Are you down?
Yeah.
Burnt offerings. Oh, my opening page would just be the guy being crushed by the. Or is that the actual soundtrack?
All right. I'm sorry.
That was made with Angel Fire, you say?
Here's a question.
Yeah, I think so. It's Angel Fire. Yeah.
Okay. The title of the film. This is the thing that's bugged me through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Sounds like a group of people actively out
right.
trying to scare someone. I might watch a film and say, let's scare. Who is trying to scare Jessica to death?
The whole town.
Why are they trying to scare Jessica to death? None of those things are in this film. Nobody is trying to scare Jessica to death.
They're just trying to make her a part of their little vampire.
That's what the director says. I'm going to scare Jessica to death. And okay,
can I interject?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I do have some experience with this.
Okay.
As some of you know, I am a writer as well as a supreme podcast god. And a few years ago, I was working with a group of people that I'm proud to call friends, and they, this buddy of mine wanted to do a short film on a breakup that he had just gone through, and he called the film Horror. Good title for a breakup movie, right?
A little on the nose, but okay.
But then, because the actress was an old friend of his, and he just wanted something else to shoot with her, just something so they could work together again. He said that that's what he wanted to do, so I wrote a little something to make it happen. Except during Horror, I liked how she was able to, the emotion she was able to draw during her scenes. And because I couldn't, or maybe wouldn't think of a better title, I went with the premise for writing the thing, which in the end turned out to be a woman who's having sex with a boyfriend, and during a little bit of kink action, he gets strangled to death. And she's dealing with that, emotionally in the immediate moment.
Sexual survivor's guilt.
And she starts hallucinating. He talks to her, that kind of thing. But the title was make her cry. Because that's what I wanted to do. So I'm thinking maybe whoever came up with the title's like
He wanted to scare
thinking of the character and want to scare her. And this is coming from more of a writer-director standpoint. I mean, don't get me wrong. The title, as far as the plot goes, makes zero sense. But if you're writing this and you're, thinking about what your goal is, let's scare Jessica to death. That's apparently what he was trying to do as the writer, not as a conspiratorial group of people teaming up to make the character feel bad. But it's very misleading.
See, I would have taken that title and put it on a Vincent Price film where he's trying to get the money out of this one woman who's got a weak heart, and all through the whole movie, he's just trying to scare her to death. That's what that title screams to me. Is that it's and definitely Vincent Price has to be in it.
Well, let's dig him up.
I meant back then.
Okay. George Lucas, he was going to try to bring actors back from the dead. So,
ooh, creepy.
I mean, not literally, but I mean.
Oh, I thought you were like necromancing,
digitally. I wonder how Humphrey Bogart would look good, right? His corpse.
Oh, they did use him.
Yeah.
They've digitally used a bunch of actors in commercials and everything, and now people are making sure that their contracts say they cannot be used for commercial use.
The good thing is that none of you guys' contracts say that I can't use you guys after you guys have passed on. So
nobody wants to use me now. What should I worry about when I'm dead?
Right.
Wait a minute. There were contracts? Damn.
Yeah. You signed them. Okay, so before we, get to the end of this thing,
yes.
Let's talk about the resolution. The last, I guess it was 10 minutes of the film where the shit hits the fan. Yes. I love the scene where she gets in the car with the trucker and goes to the town, and then and then she runs all the way back to town and just passes out. I love that. But so what do you guys think about the way that the resolution? I mean, I kind of like how it ended in this regard, how how the townspeople see her, and then she rose, and they just kind of I do kind of like that. That was pretty cool. I think that was a pretty good ending. What do you guys think? Josh, go first, and then we'll do
okay. Well, I'm not sure the word resolution fits, but the ending / beginning kind of falls into the whole idea that we were talking about earlier, as it being a Groundhog Day scenario where it's just going to turn around and start all over again, because that's why we started at the end.
Yep.
But the unsettling part to me was the whole murder in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
She's out in the water, and the hand shoots out from the water, and it's supposed to be her husband trying to get on the boat. It's like, do people do that? Or maybe you wait 5 minutes to see if she comes back in. Maybe you call out if you're on the shore. What was he doing in the water for him to be murdered? Well, that could be where the title came in. Maybe he's the schizophrenic one, and he has multiple personalities, and he's like, let's do this. Let us scare her to death in one scene at the very end of the movie. But yeah, there it is right there. She's rowing out.
She's not working really hard, though.
Lovely nightgown for it.
No, actually, can I just interject something?
Sure.
Actually, she isn't going anywhere. And that's one of the shots that is maybe the best of the whole film. She is rowing and not going anywhere. Why? Because she can't leave. She isn't actually where she thinks she is. She's never going to go any place in the water. She can't. For the same reason the ferryman isn't going to take her back.
So that makes sense to me because him being there like that makes no sense. But if she's not actually there herself, I get it.
Him not reacting to getting stabbed says something too, which says he ain't there. Because I'm sorry. The first thing going into him, all you see is his hand kind of going. It's like, I think he'd react a little bit stronger than that. But hey,
maybe he might say "ouch" at some point.
Say, "What the hell are you doing?" Try to tip the boat over, push away from her.
Well, I'll say this. I understand people are attributing things to this film.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they really match, because maybe it's one of those things they just did what they did, and then after all these years go by, they're like, "Oh, I get it. They're dead," and all of this stuff, and we're attributing things that are not there. I give an example using. I'm gonna do like Joshua. I did a movie, and I did this movie, and I put it out there, and people were attributing things that was totally not in my head, and some of them were so awesome that I just said to that I made it with, like, we're gonna start saying that's what I was thinking. Like, the truth is, I wasn't thinking none of those things. It was very just basic, but people were making all these trippy things what the movie represented, and it really, honestly, it really did. It was just, but people, I like what people were saying because it sounded way better than what I was coming up with. So I don't know if that's really what it is, or is it that we're attributing things to this that
like it's given enough of a blank slate that you can put anything you want into it, and that's a possibility too. Because that's the thing that does happen with a lot of art, where the artist has one intention, they put it out there, and people interpret whatever they want from it afterwards. And there's always the case of the artist going, "That's not what I meant, and this is the way it has to be." And the fact is, anything that goes out there is to each individual what they interpret it to be. And when you have something like this that's got ambiguity in it, it's going to lead people to come up with their own conclusions. Could the ferryman have been, saying, "Oh, you can't leave because you can never leave," or is he saying, "You can't leave because the vampire wants you, and I'm one of her minions," in the classic vampire sense, kind of like your Renfrews and all that. It could
or
be
maybe he's retiring.
Yeah. All right, you can't go this way because the ferry's broken. But she's crazy, so she didn't know that. She thought he meant something else. Yeah. But I think this is the case for this film, and this, you could take it either way. Where it's ambiguous enough, there's enough odd things that don't have explanations, which you don't get a lot in films nowadays. Nowadays, everybody explains everything so that you know exactly what you're seeing. There's no ambiguity for a lot of mainstream films. But when you do have a little bit, people will read into things and see things they and go, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe this means this, and maybe this," and then they could. What we do with any argument in some cases is we take what we have now got as our conclusion, and we go and make all the pieces throughout the film fit to that conclusion. Oh, this means this now, and that he's riding the hearse. Why? Because of this. Or you saw the hearse and you thought, okay, death, so she has to be dead, and then you go through the whole thing, and it's not wrong, and that's the thing. I mean, that's a beautiful thing with films like this, is that you can do that, and you're not wrong, even if the filmmaker didn't intend it. Doesn't matter. I mean,
right, Bruce Willis.
Unless you're completely off base and you think this is about an alien invasion from the planet Zontar and everything, then okay, you're really stretching.
I could defend that.
You could, but you're wrong.
Well, the girls in Zontar are very attractive.
They are.
All right, so let's do our scores. I'll go first. All right. Story, I gave it a 4. I think that we've seen these kind of stories before. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I have to look at the films that came out in pre-70s to see maybe this was beyond the curve or ahead of the curve. I don't know. But as far as how much I enjoyed it, I would say it was about a 4. The acting was a 4, and I think I was being pretty nice because I don't think anyone really stood out necessarily. Maybe the pawn shop guy, he was pretty good. The pawn shop guy was pretty dope. 3, score and sound design. I gave it a 4 as well. Like, I mean, maybe I should have gave it like maybe a 6. I'm thinking, because even though it was this wonky, funky sound, it kind of made me laugh more than it. I think I'm gonna go up to a 6 with that one.
It wasn't supposed to make you laugh.
Yeah, well, I know, right? I actually kind of enjoyed it. And it's pretty. The music is pretty interesting in that 70s weird vibe. Now, number 4, production quality, overall look. I gave it a 6 because I really did enjoy the Sleepy Town. I love those kind of stories about the Sleepy Town and that the people come and move in, and there's not all that the town is not necessarily what you think it is, and all of that. And it did have good atmosphere and stuff like that. So overall entertainment value, I gave it a 5. Just because it was kind of hard to get through and to watch. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it though, but so I guess it was down the middle. I don't know if I'd watch it again, but so I gave it a 25. All right, so Josh, I guess you would be next.
All right, this is going to be interesting because wow, you kind of kicked it in the nuts there.
Really? Okay. I thought he was being generous, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my scores, story, I gave it an 8.
Oh wow!
Because I enjoyed the look at mental illness in the middle of a supernatural problem, and actually, my score for story was a little bit lower until we broke it down here, and I raised it on the spot because there were things that I missed and thought, you know what, that's actually pretty awesome that it can be interpreted in so many different ways. So I give it credit for that. So I'm gonna go with an 8. Acting, I thought the toned down nature of some of the performances were perfect for the tone of the film, as well as the atmosphere of where they were filming. And to me, Jessica was fantastic because it was very subdued instead of over the top, where a lot of other people might have gone, especially with the voices and things like that. Just the fact that she's trying to hide her true feelings. One of the scenes that really sold me was, we mentioned it earlier, when her husband's like, "I see it too," and she was like, "Oh, thank God." Where that instant relief and joy was like, I'm not going nuts. This is a good thing. I enjoyed that, so I give the acting an 8.
Oh wow!
Score and sound design, I gave a 7 because I'll admit it's mostly because of the score. Like I said, it reminds me very much of a Minecraft atmosphere where it's just cool. It's soothing. It's there, and the score wasn't there to overtake a scene, and it was very ambient. And once again, I thought it fit the tone of the movie as well as the atmosphere of the location. Production quality. You know what? One of the first things I thought about when I was watching this movie was, hey, these are some pretty awesomely framed shots. Someone knows what they're doing with the camera. And I saw all of these locations they were in, and one of the scenes especially with Jessica standing on the shore. We saw it on their website, and vampire girls walking up out of the water, and you get that pullback with Jessica, and I was like, okay, I dig it. This was shot well, so I gave it a 7. And overall, while I did enjoy it, while I found a lot of things I liked about it, there were still some things that left me wanting, I don't know, a different choice made here and there. So I gave it a 7 overall.
Wow. Wow, that's one of the top scores of all the movies. 37. Okay. All right. Jen.
All right. Well, y'all know that I love this movie. Obviously, I chose it for a reason.
Mm-hmm. You like tons across the board.
So, yeah, right. Well, and before I say that, I have to say that Movies Make the Meal this week is it's Cookies in a Graveyard. And
wait, not yet.
Oh,
because I need time.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Never mind.
Brush things out.
I didn't actually say that. It's actually something else. Okay, so story. I gave this movie an 8. I really love this story. I love it for lots of different reasons. It's multidimensional. There's tons of different ways to interpret it, and I find the complete and total lack of holding your hand to tell narrative a really fun experience. So I really liked it a lot. I also, like Josh, really liked the idea of this, the sort of underlying idea of how does mental illness affect either being seen by the supernatural or seeing the supernatural, and what is that effect overall, or is it even an effect? So I really liked it. Acting, I gave a 7. I know that's high, and I didn't like Jessica as, like, I wish that they would have cast somebody else, but for what she had, I feel like she made a really good effort at being that person, that being that is Jessica. I feel like was very well encapsulated, and so that there was that. And then I loved Emily, even though I think her character had some flat affect at times, and yes, she wasn't all that great of a singer, in terms of just being the understated creep person, she did a really good job. And also, let's give it up for the townspeople who were just like every other pack of rednecks ever. Just totally loved them. Score, I gave a 6. So there were some production value issues, I feel like, with the sound editing, but the score was actually really kind of cool. I really liked some of the places that they chose to put music, and then the clear absence of anything made it even starker as an experience. So I give the movie a bit of credit for that. Overall production, like Josh said, couldn't agree more. When you look at this movie, if you look at even individual frames, they do an amazing job with not just thematically framing the content, but also the way that the camera tracks in certain ways, the way that you are pulling back when Jessica is running toward you. The scenes in the orchard are just, those were really scary to me. There were a lot of really good and excellent production pieces that went along with this, so I gave it a 7. Overall, I gave this movie an 8. I absolutely would watch it again. I was so excited when it was on Shudder. It's now gone off of Shudder, but it was amazing while it was there, and there was all this resurgence of people talking about it, so I was super excited. So yep, overall I gave it an 8.
All right, so 36. All right, so it's on you, King.
Yeah, well, I know what the scores would be if this was the film I wanted it to be, but it wasn't. So I'm going to go by what I saw. Story-wise, it's a 6. It has some interesting moments in it, but generally it's a vampire story and a woman with mental illness coming to a creepy small town. And none of these things kind of went together perfectly, or not perfectly, but as well as I'd like them to. It was too much showing you exactly that everything you were seeing was happening. The idea that the stranger in the house there's something wrong with her, you could tell right away. So that kind of dragged that down. Acting, a 5. I low key performances. I get where they're supposed to be, but they were really low key performances. The townspeople were basically, thank God they didn't have lines, because you could tell these guys are the kind of guys who, if they had, many of them had lines, would not have come across as as stiff as they already do. Score and sound design. I like the whispering sound effects and everything, the voice in their head and that kind of stuff. I'm going to dissent, though. I did not like the music at all. I wish the movie didn't have the music at all. I think it would have been more effective, because, and so I'm giving it a 6, only because there are certain things I liked about it. But that was definitely, the music was definitely something I did not like or care for. And that leads me to production quality. I liked the look of this film. I thought it was well shot. I liked the grainy kind of documentary look. And this is why I thought if they didn't have the music, it would be even more effective. Because like you said, the scenes where they didn't have the music were really effective, but the scenes with the music took it away from me. It really did, because I didn't think the music worked for it. So I'm giving the production quality 7 on that. I did like it. Overall entertainment value, though, I'm giving it a 4. I didn't like this film. I know what people are saying and what this thing could have been, and those all sound interesting, but that's not the film I saw. I did not see that film that you people are describing, and unfortunately, the film I saw, I was not entertained. I was bored for most of it, and going, okay, I can see where this is going, and okay, so that's where I'm at with this one.
All right, so it's on you, Jen.
Tell us about those cookies, you call them?
Okay, yeah. Well, it wasn't going to be cookies, but now it's back to be cookies because, now it's my turn. So, okay, so everybody knows in this movie, if you've seen it, that Jessica has a particular affinity for doing something called, what do they call that? I just had a name for it and I totally forgot it. But basically, it's when you do a rubbing on a gravestone. There is a very specific name for it, and I totally forgot what it is. But
etching. Rubbing.
Apparently, it's
etching.
Right?
Etching, yeah.
Etching, yeah. So I made a kind of a classic, which is a graveyard with Oreo cookies, chocolate pudding, and you use Nilla wafers, and then you make little gravestones and you stick them in your graveyard, and you can add all other kinds of stuff in it. But we got really creative. I'll post up the pictures of our creations. I used a fairly stock image for it, but we made this ourselves. And man, I have some serious artists in my family. They made some amazing gravestones, so it was quite spectacular. So that's what we have for Let's Scare Jessica to Death, the potential graveyard.
Quick question. What did you use for the mice/moles?
Well, I suppose if you really wanted to go that far, you could use gummies, and they would probably work.
Cool.
Gummies.
Gummy mice moles.
Well, if they're covered with chocolate pudding, you'd never know the difference. So if you bite into it, and also, how many of us have actually tasted a mole? I mean, they could taste like gummies. Who knows?
They don't.
I love moles.
They're like chicken.
Oh.
Rancid chicken.
I would not suggest putting chicken in your graveyard. It would not taste very good.
I have a feeling that you really know that.
Yeah. Not speaking out of experience, maybe not. I don't know.
All right. Have you finished your tabulation, sir?
I have, sir.
I'm excited.
And so let me do it. Okay, so our leaderboard at number 7, we have Casino Royale, which got a 40, which is a 16 on the cheese meter. Rollerball got a 98, which is a 39. That's at the 6th spot on the cheese rating. The Car, which got 102, which is a 40% on the cheese rating. Number 4, The Towering Inferno, 104, which is a 52 on the cheese rating. Number 3, Body Double. So Body Double is now bumped out. That got a 123, which is a 61 on the cheese rating. And we have a new number 2. Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Got 127, which is a 63 cheese rating. It is only second to the Dawn of the Dead. So I know that you must feel really good about that. I really didn't think that this was going to get such a high score. So
this is a very polarizing film. We were split right down the middle, both sides. I mean, this had high ratings and low ratings. Not even, I wouldn't even say they're low ratings because I didn't give it like, I mean, the 1-4, but if you look at the other ones, like 5, 6, and 7s are decent ratings.
Yeah, I mean, I probably gave it the worst score out of everybody. Well, not even
For
probably,
sure.
I did. But even King Penguin gave it that's a good score, 29. So
I mean, like I said, I didn't hate this film. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, so that's really good. That's very good. Your movie did good. Congratulations. It's number 2, so it has a chance. If it stays in this number 2 slot, it has a chance to be the final 2. So we'll
no burnt offerings.
Yes, it's definitely no burnt offerings. Which I know Josh is like, burnt offerings. Oh, you'll love that one. One day we're gonna have to make you watch that.
Oh, don't. No.
So, all right. So let's do this. Let's talk about the movie next week. And this is my film, and we already pre-selected the films, but don't worry. Season 2, you will be getting your films in there. Yes. See what I say? Season 2, I'm sorry, season 4.
We're going back in time. We're Josh.
We're done with this season. But Josh, you will get your picks as well. Okay, so let's talk about this movie. The movie is called The Dead Zone. The Dead Zone. When Johnny Smith, played by Christopher Walken, awakens from a coma caused by a car accident, he finds that years have passed, and now he has psychic abilities. Heartbroken that his girlfriend, played by Brooke Adams, has moved on with her life, Johnny also must contend with his unsettling powers, which allows him to see a person's future with a mere touch. After shaking the hand of a aspiring politician, Greg Stilson, played by Martin Sheen, Johnny sees the danger presented by the candidate's rise and resolves to kill him. Released on October 21st, 1983, directed by the great David Cronenberg, and also adapted from a Stephen King novel. And I haven't seen this in a while, but I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I remember really liking this film. There's an interesting story about the Dead Zone. I probably should save it for next week.
Save it for next week.
But I'm gonna say it real quick.
Okay.
When I was a young kid, I didn't want to read, right? I didn't want to read books, and there was this guy who was a smart genius, but he was crazy, and he would always tell me, you got to read, and he would always tell me about all these big books, that I should read, and then he realized that, okay, let me find out a topic he likes that I like, and that maybe I'll get me to read. And I loved horror films, right, as a kid. So he was like, okay, some of your horror films were based on books, and so get a book of a movie you like. And then the only really author I knew was like Stephen King, Mm-hmm. So when we went to the library together, because he was trying to get me to become a reader, right? And I was very young, and so I just went to the Stephen King section, and I was looking for like Cujo and Christine and all those books. They were checked out. And then I found this book called The Dead Zone, and I read the inside, and I'm like, it sounds interesting. I took it home, and then I really didn't read it at first. And then he was like, read the book. And I finally started reading it, and it was like this page turner. It's a great book. And that was the book that got me to become a reader. After that, I became like this voracious reader. So The Dead Zone, it's a great one. Then I found out there was a movie. I didn't even know the movie exists. So then I found the movie. It was hard to find at the time. And then watched the movie, loved the movie. Then there was a great TV series as well. based on the same material. So yeah, so it's gonna be fun to rewatch this movie. I might do it tonight. Who knows? So enough of that stuff. I see. Hey, Danny in the chat. Next week though, you may not know this, but next week, King, here in the America,
yes, you have your
July.
me.
So I want
to first.
I want to do a show next week, but what's another day we can do instead of the 4th that we can all agree on?
Oh, I'm good for any day, to be honest.
My
long
Wednesday?
weekend this
Is
weekend.
Wednesday okay?
Wednesday? Geez, that's my gaming day.
Oh.
How about
Thursday? I'm about to say Thursday. What about Friday? Jen, are you okay with Friday? Oh, well, you do something on Friday, right, Josh?
Yes. So yes, I do.
Tuesday? Anybody up for Tuesday?
Tuesday I can do.
What about you, Jen?
Tuesday. Yeah.
All right. And Josh, you okay with Tuesday?
Technically, I'm out of town to the 11th, but I can take my laptop with me.
Okay. We'll do it on Tuesday.
Tuesday
right.
It is.
All right. Well, thank you. And Josh, how can we get you on social media?
Well, you can find me on the old Twitters at Skitcomic, SKITCOMIC. And if you feel like gaming anywhere, and I mean like anywhere, the name's the same. So game with me. Look at me up on Letterboxd. Find out what I think of movies. Things like that. Skitcomic. It's a household name.
What about you, Jen? How can we get you in social media and all that goodness?
You can find me on Twitter at followingbliss1, and you can find me on the web at moviesmakethemeal.com and criticallaughs.com.
All right. And you can get me at Kente F on Twitter and Kente Ferguson on Instagram. We'll be back with an all-new episode of Men and Women Talk, the Mars Venus Show, Monday. And King, how can we get you?
You can get me at kingpenguin@gmail.com. It's King Penguin with a V instead of a U. Or you can catch up my all the garbage that I put out on YouTube under Professor Psycho's movie Madhouse. So there's those, plus the Professor Psycho's movie madhouse.com, where you can also find other nonsense that I've done.
All right. I guess we have a great weekend, everybody.
You too.